शुक्र खुदा में रज़वी हो।
Allah Almighty, by His divine grace and His mercy, has blessed us with the ability, the capability and the capacity to understand the importance and the significance of holding firmly to our deen, so that we may truly adorn our dunya and beautify our akhirat before we journey in that direction. Almighty Allah has given us this tawfiq. Almighty Allah has given us this guidance, and He has commanded us time and over again to remain firm in our deen and be grounded in our deen. However, the dunya, this Western world that we live in, has become a massive vice. It has become a huge trap. And yes, it is a trap if it is not used but rather abused. This dunya has become a trap for the ummah, where we have become so lost and so engrossed and drowned in the love of this world that we have forgotten our responsibility in the court of Almighty Allah. We have forgotten our responsibility in the court of the beloved Rasul sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. We have forgotten what is our zimidari. We have forgotten why Almighty Allah has put us here in this dunya. We have forgotten the maqsad of our hayat, the purpose of our being in this world. And last night I shared a message like I share every Thursday night. And I'm going to continue with that and discuss that today briefly, where a tabain, one of the great tabain. Who is the tabain? I reminded you last week, that person who saw the Sahaba Ikram with the eyes of Iman, left this world with the eyes of Iman. So a great tabain by the name of Hazrat Sayyiduna Shumait bin Ajlan. Hazrat Sayyiduna Shumait ibn Ajlan radiyallahu ta'ala an. He said something very beautifully. And this was reported by his son, Abdullah ibn Shumait. His son Abdullah ibn Shumait says that my father, Hazrat Sayyidina Shumait bin Ajlan radiyallahu anh, said that the worst person, a wretched servant, a worst banda, a wretched servant is he who has been created for ibadah, for worship. Worst, wretched servant is he who has been created for ibadah, but his desires have hindered him from ibadah. Allah has created us for what? What Allah says in the Holy Quran? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah is saying that I have created not man and jinn, but solely for the purpose of my ibadah. In other words, I have created you for my ibadah. That is what Allah is telling us in the Holy Quran. So anything that you do for the pleasure of Allah is counted as ibadat. Okay? Now, Hazrat Sayyidina Shumait ibn Ajlan, the tabain is telling us that the worst kind of people amongst the servants of Allah are those that Allah has created you for His ibadah, but you allow your desire, your nafs, you allow your inner self and your carnal desire to block you and hinder you and obstruct you from that same ibadat for which Allah created you. Now think about how destructive this is. Think about how harmful this is. Allah created you for His ibadat. He's saying Allah created you for His ibadat, like Allah is saying in the Quran. But he's saying that the worst kind of banda is that banda. He knows that Allah created him for ibadah. We know it. But we still allow our desire for the dunya to hinder us from Allah's ibadat. In other words, we let the greed for wealth hinder us from our ibadat. We let all the other dunyawi things hinder us from our ibadat. And then he doesn't stop there. Hazrat Sayyidina Shumayd bin Ajlan radiallahu anhu doesn't stop there. What does he say? He says another form of a wretched servant is he who knows he has been created for the akhirat. Yeah, you are here in this dunya for Allah's ibadat. That is why he said ibadat first. And if you make ibadat and you do what Allah commanded you and what His Nabi commanded you, then you have adorned your akhirat. You have prepared your akhirat. So he says a wretched servant is he who has been created for the akhirat. In other words, he knows that he has been created for the akhirat. But the world has made him heedless of the akhirat. The dunya has made him heedless of the akhirat. He doesn't care, neglectful. So what does he say in the end? He said such a person has ruined his dunya also and he's ruined his akhirat also. He's ruined his dunya also and he's ruined his akhirat also. Neither did he get dunya, nor will he get akhirat. Why? Because he let the dunya devour him. He allowed himself to be trapped in all the vices of the world. Why did he do this? This is the question that we ask ourselves. After we know, why do we still do it? I know this is fire, and I still decide to put my hand in the fire to get burnt. Is this akal mandi? I know that Allah has made this haram, but I still do it. I know that this thing is guna, but I still do it. What is it telling us? It is telling us that we have reached such a level, unfortunately, in our lives, that either we are heedless and we do not care, either we are heedless or we do not care, or the mercy of Allah has become very distant from us. Allah has left us. Now this is devastating. This is detrimental to a person's iman, it is detrimental to his deen, and is detrimental to his dunya also. That is why the beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam time and over reminded us how important it is to keep the companionship of good people. How important it is to sit with those who are deendar, to keep the company of those who love Allah and love Allah's Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is why the Quran is saying, and almost every week I read this ayat to you, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. O believers, fear Allah. O you who believe, fear Allah. Where has the fear for Allah gone in us? We need to ask ourselves that question. What has happened to us? That while doing guna, we don't even fear Allah. Because if a person feared Allah, he won't openly commit that sin. It means at that time, you do not care about the fear of Almighty Allah. And Allah is saying in so many places in the Quran, Allah is reminding you, fear me. Fear Allah. Today we fear the person that got money. We fear the person who's a gangster. We fear the person who's very powerful. But they all Allah's servants. In the fear of them, you are not fearing your Rabb. You don't care about your Creator Almighty Allah. The pious servants of Almighty Allah used to spend their entire days and nights weeping in Khawf-e-Khuda. The beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, it has come in the Hadith Mubarakah that when my and your beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would stand in Salah, and when he would be in communication with his Creator Almighty Allah, then the sound that used to come from the Sinai Mubarak, from the holy chest of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was like a pot that was boiling. Allahu Akbar. Because of the Khawf-e-Khuda, because of the fear of Almighty Allah. This is Allah's Nabi who is free from sin. This is Allah's Nabi who is ma'asum. He doesn't even have the capability of sinning. He cannot sin. Allah has protected him from all of that. He's ma'zoom. He's Allah's Habib. He's the greatest in the creation. But he used to weep in the fear of Almighty Allah. What about us? The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to stand in salah with this sincerity and dedication. When we stand in salah, what is our hal today? Each of us think. What is our condition today? We don't care firstly who we read namaz behind. Many people behind bad mazhabs. Those who are the deviants. The same people who will tell you that your Nabi is dead and mixed in the sand. You want to read namaz with them, ma'azallah. Those who will tell you that the Nabi does not know what is behind the wall. You want to read namaz behind them. Leave alone the Nabi not knowing what is behind the wall. The Nabi knew what was behind every single place. The Nabi himself said, I see in the back, I see at the back like I see in front. Beloved Nabi himself said. But we want to read namaz behind them. We want to befriend them. And while I'm on this discussion, let me tell you, the major problem that is today devouring this community of us, that is destroying the core of our community and our society, is that we are afraid to speak haqq. That is the big problem. We are afraid and shy to say what is the truth. We do not want to say what is haqq because this person will feel bad. Falan ko bura lagega. Haq baat karoge to ye naraz ho jaoge. This one will get upset with me. This one won't like me anymore. I won't score so many points. In other words, people won't say mashallah, subhanallah, bahaba. They'll say you are too harsh. Have you forgot there was a person called Umar Farooq? Have we forgotten the Jalal of Sayyidina Umar Farooq? And why did he do that? For the sake of the deen. Those who were in this form from the time of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there is nobody that is more kind and more soft-hearted than our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nobody. But when anybody spoke against the hukum of Almighty Allah, then Rasul Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stood against them. Today, the problem is that you want to go with the majority. They say, but in Islam we say you must follow the majority. Majority does not count in numbers, it means excellence. It doesn't count in numbers. It counts in excellence and stature in the sight of Allah and His Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because if it had to count in numbers, today people think that we are few. How are we going to say what is haq when you're few? You can't say. That is the time you must talk when nobody is talking. That is the time for us to talk. When the wrong is happening and nobody is talking. To talk when everybody talks is very easy. But to talk when none is talking is the difficult one. To write when nobody is writing is the difficult one. Learn from the lives of the pious servants of Allah. If it was all about numbers, that we only will do this when we in large number. We don't have the numbers to say what is haq. People will insult us, people will swear us, people will send us bad messages, so what? So what? Are we not answerable to Allah? Are we not answerable to Allah? We worried about numbers. No. I can't do this because we don't have the numbers. I can't say this because of this. Even if you are a few, remain on haqq. Remain on the right path. Don't compromise Allah's deen because of numbers. Kam min fiatin qalilatin ghalabat fiatan kathiratan bi'idhnillah. Don't think that about numbers. If you want to talk about numbers, let's go back 1400 years. If you want to talk about numbers, let's go back 1400 years. How many of us remember the Battle of Badr? Let's go back 1400 years. The Battle of Badr, one of the greatest battles for the Muslim Ummah. The Battle of Badr. How many kuffar were in that battle? Let's talk numbers. Come on, we're talking numbers today. Let's talk about numbers. We don't want to be firm because of this and that. Let's talk numbers. How many kuffar were there when the Sahaba went into the Battle of Badr? Tell me. 950. How many were there? 950, approximately 950. Kuffar were there. Okay, under the leadership of Utbah bin Rabi'a. 950 of them. How many horses did they have? 950 kafirs. How many horses did they have? 100 horses. Because they all didn't fight on mount. Some of them fought by foot, etc. They had 100 horses. I want you to keep the figures. How many kuffar? 950. Maybe my memory is weak. You'll remember better than me. So you can remind me. How many kuffar were there? 950. In the battle of Badr. How many? 950. How many horses did they have? 100. How many camels did they have? 700. I'm giving you numbers now. We want to talk about numbers. How many kuffar? 950. How many horses? 100. How many camels? 700. So from the 950, 800 were on mount. 800 of them had steeds. How many? 950. Of which 800 were on mount. In other words, 700 on camels, 100 on horses and weapons. They had huge, massive amount of weapons. The Kuffar Makkah. Can you hear the numbers? Now let's go into the court of Aqaid Alam. Noori Mujassam, Surur Qalb Sina, Tajdar Madina, Fakhr Mawjudat, Hazrat Ahmad Mustafa, Muhammad al-Mustafa, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, coming to face that 950 with 100 horses, 700 camels, and massive amount of weapons. Coming to face them is Allah's beloved Habib, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, including Allah's Habib and the Sahaba Kiram, 313. How many? How many on that side? How many? 950. How many on this side? 313. But they are on haqq. They are the believers. They are the ones who have Allah's Rasul with them. 313. On that side 950. On this side 313. On that side how many horses I said? How many horses with the Sahaba? Kuffar had how many I said? 100. 950 on that side. 313 on this side. 950. 313. Here the Kuffar have 100 horses. How many horses did the Sahaba have in the battle of Badr? 2. 2 horses. Let's talk numbers. 313 compared to 950. 2 compared to 100. How many camels did the Kuffar have? 700. How many camels were with the Sahaba Ikram? 17. How many camels were with the Sahaba Ikram? 17. 17 camels, 2 horses, 19 mounts compared to 800 on this side. Couldn't count their swords and other weapons. And the Sahaba Ikram, in 313, how many swords were there? Take a guess, wild guess. 8 swords. 8 swords amongst 313 Sahaba, standing against an army of 950 with massive amount of weapons, 700 camels, 100 horses, and here 313 people with 2 horses, 17 camels, 8 swords, and only 6 people who had body armor. Only 6 people who had body armor. But in that battle, Abu Jahl also went. And all the other big kuffar went. Why? 313. 2 horses compared to 100. 17 compared to 700 camels. 8 swords compared to a massive amount of weapons on the other side. It was not about the numbers. It was the leadership of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, the greatest in Allah's creation. And it was the trust of the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who believed and knew that we are on haqq, that in haqq we don't see numbers. We don't see numbers. That is what the Sahaba Ikram did. That is why in that battle, with 8 swords only, and only 2 horses, and 17 camels. When the Sahaba came to the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they came and they said, Ya Rasulullah, I don't have a sword. Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I don't have a sword. They knew that there were only 8 swords, but they still came and asked the Nabi. The Nabi broke a branch of a tree. The Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam broke a piece of a tree, and he would give them the branches and the twigs of trees, and he would say, go in the battle. The Sahaba Ikram said, we saw that did the job which even a sword could not do in that battle. And the Sahaba Ikram said that we had few horses, but we could hear the sound of horses. We could hear sounds of the hooves. We did not know what was happening. We could hear somebody saying, Aqdim haydum, go forward, go forward. We didn't know who they were talking about. They said, but then we asked, Ya Rasulullah, we see that the heads of the kuffar are falling over. We see that we are being victorious, but we cannot see who is with us. The beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah has sent down the malaika to be with you. Based on my dua, and the one that is commanding this offensive is Jibreel Amin alayhi salatu wasalam. So they were few. They were few, but their trust was in Allah. They were few and their trust was in Allah. What does it teach us? Put your trust in Allah and hold firmly to Allah's deen. Put your trust in Allah and hold firmly to Allah's deen. Allah will give you assistance from the unseen. Allah will assist us from the unseen. But if we do not have any trust, if we lose our faith, if we do not have yaqeen in the mercy of our Rabb, then what is our benefit in this dunya? How are we still saying that we are true Muslims? It is something to think about. Do not compromise the deen of Allah. Do not compromise the shariat of the beloved Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because you can do whatever dhamal you want in the dunya. You will do whatever you want in this dunya. But don't forget, Al-bir la yabla wa dhanb la yunsa wa dayanu la yamut. I'mal ma shi'ta kama tadin tudan. You can do what you want here, but there is going to come the day of accountability. Qiyamah will come. The day will come. The day will come where you will stand in the court of Almighty Allah, and all of us will have to be held accountable. We will all answer, and Allah will say, did you sell your deen for the dunya? Did you compromise your deen for this world that has perished and gone away? What will we answer? What is going to be our condition on that day? May Allah Almighty guide us, and may Allah Almighty allow us to see reality and change before our eyes close. It is now the time to make the change in our lives. Now is the time to become firm, and the first step that you have to take to piety is stand in the court of Allah. Perform your salah. Stand in the court of Allah. Perform your ibadat correctly. Make sure you are reading behind Sunni Sahihul Aqidah. Make sure you are doing that which is the command of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you stand up in the court of Allah, and I said last week, do not stand in the court of Allah with your sleeves pulled up. Do not stand in the court of Allah with all your buttons open. Do not stand in the court of Allah in this manner as if you are standing just anywhere. You are standing in the court of Allah. You are standing in the court of your Creator. Think that when you stand in the court of Allah, you should ask yourself the condition. Am I properly attired to stand in my Rabb's darbar? Is my Rabb pleased with this what I'm wearing? Is my Rabb pleased with this behavior of mine in salah? And then you will know the answer to the question by yourself. And you know that this is not how I should be. Then you should correct what you are doing. And then stand in the court of Allah. You will find Allah most forgiving, most merciful. But it is time for us to make the changes. We have to be more conscious. We have to pay attention to our ibadah. When you go in ruku, you should pay attention that I'm saying Subhana Rabbiyal Azim. When you go into sajda, you must say I'm saying Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. You need to think about this, that I'm praising and glorifying Almighty Allah. I'm saying the glory of Almighty Allah. And this is the time that my Rabb's mercy is descending upon me. But if you are standing in the court of Allah in a state that does not even, a state that is not even worthy of that position, then what will happen? How you expect if the basic, you see people today, they're reading namaz and they have a big picture of some film star or some cricket player or football player on the t-shirt and they're reading namaz. How is the namaz going to be kabul? Tell me. When the rahmat farishtas don't even come near you at that time. How is it going to be kabul? So Allah gave us akal. We need to think that we should do this and we shouldn't do this. And if you can differentiate between that sincerely with your heart, then inshallah your life will change for the best in every way. You will find barakat in what you earn. You will find barakat in your home. You will find Allah will give you barakat in your health. But if you leave all of that and do everything for the sake of the dunya and still think I'm fine, then we have a big problem. And the problem is that we have forgotten our real responsibility. Allah keep us with iman. Let us leave this world with iman. May Allah bless us with true yaqeen, and may Allah bless us with holding firm to our deen by putting our trust in Him. And let us learn from the companions on the plains of Badr. Let us learn from the companions of the beloved Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who at every qadam always remained firm on what is haqq. And they taught us the most beautiful lessons of haqq. May Allah keep us with iman. Let us leave this world with iman. Those who are ill in our community, Allah grant them shifa.